Let's dive into a topic that's been simmering for far too long, the potential trade of Kirk Cousins. I know, this might seem like a broken record, but the latest insights from Albert Breer of Sports Illustrated have reignited the conversation. So let's break down the timeline and the implications of this situation because it's more than just a trade. It's a pivotal moment for the Atlanta Falcons. March 15th, the $10 million roster bonus. The clock started ticking on March 15th when Cousins received a $10 million roster bonus for 2026, guaranteed if he remains with the Falcons. This is a crucial detail because it means that if he's traded, the new team could be on the hook for some or all of that bonus. This financial aspect adds a layer of complexity to any potential deal, making it a key date in the off-season calendar. April 26th, the NFL draft and no-trade clause. Fast forward to April 26th, the day the NFL draft wrapped up. Reports surfaced that Cousins had informed several teams of his intention to utilize his no-trade clause. This was a strategic move to avoid being sent to a less desirable situation, like Cleveland, for instance. Imagine the irony if the Browns had selected Shader Sanders at pick number 2, leaving Cousins in the lurch. The draft was a pivotal moment as it solidified Cousins' control over his future. Late July, the training camp decision. Now let's look ahead to late July when training camp opens. This is when the Falcons are likely to make their move to offload Cousins. Just 2 months ago, there were a few teams that seemed like perfect fits for him, particularly the Cleveland Browns. Cousins was spotted in Cleveland at the end of March, visiting the team doctor for an update on his shoulder and elbow injuries. The changing landscape. Teams making moves. However, the landscape has shifted dramatically since then. The Browns have added Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, Dylan Gabriel, and Shader Sanders to their quarterback room. With these 4 options, they seem content at the position, effectively crossing them off the list for Cousins. The Pittsburgh Steelers have also made moves, bringing back Mason Rudolph and drafting Will Howard. With Aaron Rodgers still a wild card, the Steelers might be waiting to see how that situation unfolds before making any further decisions. And then there's the Minnesota Vikings, who recently traded for Sam Howell. This acquisition appears to be their insurance policy on the uncertain status of J.J. McCarthy, who is recovering from knee surgery. The Falcons strategy, a game of poker. So where does that leave the Atlanta Falcons? If they genuinely want to trade Cousins, they need to play their cards right. It seems they've been engaging in a strategic poker game, presenting a facade of being content with Cousins as a backup. This tactic could be aimed at driving up his value and enticing other teams to make a more compelling offer. Conclusion: the stakes are high. As we navigate this complex situation, one thing is clear. The stakes are high for the Falcons. The decision to trade Kirk Cousins could reshape their future, and the clock is ticking. Will they find the right deal, or will they be left holding on to a quarterback whose best days may be behind him? The coming months will be critical, and the NFL landscape is ever-changing. Stay tuned because this story is far from over. For the Atlanta Falcons, the plan to trade Kirk Cousins has not unfolded as hoped. While other teams have secured new quarterbacks, the Falcons find themselves at a crossroads with 3 potential routes to consider. Let's explore these options and the implications they hold for the franchise. Option 1. Waiting for an injury. The first option for Terry Fontenot and the Falcons is a rather morbid hope, praying for another starting quarterback to get injured during training camp. It's a grim thought, but if such an unfortunate event were to occur, the Falcons would suddenly possess a highly sought-after asset in Cousins. Teams would be clamoring for his services, desperate to fill the void left by their injured starter. But how realistic is this scenario? History suggests it's not very common. I took a look at injuries from 2021 to the present, focusing on players who were in line to start or competing for the starting role. For instance, Justin Herbert injured his foot last year but still managed to start in Week 1. If he had been sidelined during training camp, would the Chargers have rushed to trade for Cousins? Likely not. Consider J.J. McCarthy, who missed the entire year. Even if he had been healthy, it's uncertain whether he would have been the Week 1 starter. Sam Darnold's injury in 2022 with the Panthers is another example. He was competing with Baker Mayfield, and it's debatable whether he would have been the starter if healthy. In those cases, would Minnesota or Carolina have pursued Cousins? Probably not. Zach Wilson's injury kept him out for the first 3 weeks, but it wasn't severe enough to prompt the Jets to make a trade. Dak Prescott's injury in the 2021 preseason was another instance where the team didn't panic. He was back by week 1. In short, it's rare for a contending team to lose their starting quarterback in training camp and immediately seek a replacement. This makes the first option a long shot. Option 2. Keeping Cousins as a backup. The second option is for Atlanta to retain Kirk Cousins as a backup. The Falcons have publicly stated they are content to keep him in that role, but here's where I struggle to accept this possibility. What if they're not actively seeking to trade him? If a team were to present an offer they couldn't refuse, they might reconsider, but the idea of keeping Cousins feels flawed. I find it hard to believe that a team would want a veteran quarterback who has expressed a desire to be traded or released to mentor their second-year quarterback. It's akin to holding a hostage rather than having a willing participant. A player who doesn't want to be there can't effectively support the development of a young quarterback. Moreover, keeping Cousins would make him the most expensive backup in the league. While the financial implications might not weigh heavily on the Falcons, since they're already committed to his salary, it raises questions about the wisdom of such a decision. Conclusion: a tough choice. Ahead. As the Falcons navigate this complex situation, they face a tough choice. Do they gamble on the hope of an injury elsewhere, or do they keep a quarterback who may not want to be there? The stakes are high, and the decisions made in the coming weeks could significantly impact the future of the franchise. The clock is ticking, and the pressure is mounting. How will the Falcons respond? Only time will tell. Imagine this: Kirk Cousins, a 37-year-old quarterback, being paid around $30 million to sit on the bench as a backup. It's a scenario that's tough to wrap your head around, right? The thought of Cousins as a high-priced backup quarterback in Atlanta just doesn't feel realistic. One possible outcome for the Falcons is to release Cousins. It could play out like this. Atlanta puts on a public show expressing their commitment to keeping Cousins as the backup while quietly shopping him for a trade throughout the offseason. Yet as the weeks roll on, no viable trade materializes, no quarterback injury opens a spot, and the reality sets in. The Falcons never truly wanted Cousins as a backup from the start. Eventually, they cut ties, ending the brief and awkward chapter. But let's think this through financially. Cutting Cousins would mean absorbing a massive $50 million dead cap hit, $25 million of that in 2026. There's no salary cap relief to be gained from this move, so it wouldn't make sense to count it as a positive. Essentially, they'd be carrying dead money without creating any room for roster improvements. Why keeping Cousins feels like a bad idea. Here's the thing. Roster decisions aren't just about cap hits and numbers, they're also about the human side of the game. Picture Kirk Cousins, a longtime starter trying to adjust to being the backup to a younger player like Michael Penix. Can we really expect Cousins to embrace that role wholeheartedly? It's not just about showing up, it's about showing up with enthusiasm. I don't know Cousins personally, and I'd love to be proven wrong here, but I just can't picture him walking into the facility every day excited to support and mentor Penix. A backup should be someone who embraces the role, helps the starter prepare, and stays positive, even when they're not the guy under center. I just don't see that dynamic working out with Cousins in Atlanta. Looking ahead, a complicated future. Will Kirk Cousins be a Falcon come Week 1? At this point, it's anyone's guess. The offseason has been a roller coaster, and predicting the Falcons' quarterback situation is like spinning a wheel. Anything can happen. One thing's for sure, Atlanta has some tough decisions to make, and whatever they choose will define not just their quarterback room but the team's chemistry moving forward.